Please don't forget to subscribe. Let's get started. Number 1. My dogs and I shared a brownstone in an uptown Dallas gated neighborhood. For lunch every day, I came back to my house to let my dogs out. Men's cologne began to permeate my entryway and up my stairs after roughly a year of being there. I assumed it was my next-door neighbor, so I didn't pay attention. When I opened my purse one day, I was surprised to see a $1 bill folded in half on top of it. I've never folded a $1 bill in half, nor have I ever carried cash. It seemed a little out of the ordinary to me at first. When I returned home a few weeks later, I found both of my dogs wagging their tails in front of my bedroom door. In my hurry, I walked them back to the office and imagined they wanted to sleep on my bed. There were about $20 bills folded lengthwise and neatly scattered around my room when I returned that day. I've never felt so afraid in my entire life. I grabbed my dogs and ran as fast as I could out of the place. I phoned the police, they arrived, and my locks were changed, but I could never return to my home alone again. My move took place about a month after that. You can find dollar notes stuck to the backs of photos, beneath furniture and in other odd locations when you move. Who or why or how did I not know? In my mind, the scariest part of all is knowing my little dogs were aware that someone had entered my house that day and was calmly waiting in my room folding dollar notes. Number 2. A horrific story unfolded in Jamie Claw's life. Last year, a 13-14-year-old girl from a remote Wisconsin town went missing after her parents were shot to death in their own house. Despite the fact that police arrived within 4 minutes or so, she has vanished. Of course, rumors abound that she was abducted, was complicit, is dead, or some combination thereof. Nobody has any idea because she's vanished without a trace. It's been 88 days since that fateful day when she runs into a woman walking her dog in the middle of the street in northern Wisconsin. Only approximately 40 minutes away from her house, she had been kidnapped. That's enough to make you jump, but here's the really disturbing bit. Despite the fact that he had killed her family and kidnapped her, she had never communicated with him. In the car on his way to a new employment, which lasted only one day, he happened to see her get on the bus. He made the decision to take her at that point. There was no advance notice of what was about to happen. There will be no grooming. Her family could have done nothing to prevent it all from happening. From 100 feet away, a nasty young man decided that he would kill her family and steal her for himself. Number 3. As a teenager, I aspired to be an adventurer. A few miles from my house, I used to pack a tent and some survival supplies and head up the hill for a night of camping, elevated 1,200 feet. I pitched my tent in a little patch of land surrounded by dense forest. I ate my beans and then went to sleep after making them. It wasn't unusual for me to be awakened at 3 a.m. by the sound of a wild animal approaching the tent. Opened the tent at sunrise to find a white-wrapped, straw-tied package with a letter reading, "Welcome friend" on top. A calf leg/hoof is included in the package. To this day, I haven't spoken to anyone about it. I was terrified to death. For months, I couldn't stop thinking about camping, and I never went back. Number 4. For some reason, my dad's coworkers at the airport he works at found bomb-making ingredients in someone else's luggage at the time. Apparently, a suicidal computer science student had no intention of harming anyone. He intended to kill himself by putting the bomb together once he arrived at his destination. While his condition has improved, it still makes me a little uneasy to see him in this state. Number 5. In my 12th or 13th year, in our backyard, right in the middle of our back fence, stood a telephone pole. The electrician needed access to our backyard for a few days while he was working on it. My best friend and I were having a sleepover in my room one night, and we ended up in the fort we'd built. A half-hearted scream/yelp comes from her when I face her, away from my bedroom door, as she is shocked. She stated she thought she saw a man's face peeking out from between the sheets of our fort's doorway for a brief second. The rest of the night was a nightmare for both of us, but we eventually drifted off to sleep. A few days later, my family discovered that 2 of our motor scooters, which we kept in the back, were missing. My father later identified the electrician on Sacramento's top 10 wanted list. When he discovered we were awake, He must have entered the home through the back door and fled. That's the night he took the scooters, I'm pretty sure. Number 6. A blue tent, or at least the remnants of a tent, caught my eye as I strolled through the woods one day. It had been ripped apart, the poles snapped, and the pieces were strewn across a clearing. The area appeared to be filled with cream-colored flowers from a distance, but when I went closer, I realized they were only bits of paper. From Stephen King's novel, The Shining. They were burnt on the outside, as if someone had set fire to them, and the fact that they were all separate suggested that someone had intended to destroy the book. It didn't bother me. I thought it would be a great location for the film students from the adjacent school to shoot their project. Excellent work, guys, it's a little unnerving. A man from the next town over who had been missing for a long time finally turned up soon afterward, according to the local media. Dead. In the woods, in a blue tent. He may have been out when I passed by, but I couldn't tell you for sure. No one should tell me,